Fischer Random, or freestyle chess they call it now, on 960. So that's a variant of chess invented by the former world chess champion Bobby Fischer. If I'm correct, in 1992 or 1996. We need to Google it again. Have a search, guys. So Bobby Fischer invented this type of chess in which pieces on the back rank, or the back rank, first or the second, eighth rank, are being randomly scattered. So yeah, freestyle, or let's just put it Fischer Random, paying credit to the man that invented this chess variant. We are going to see now, guys, Magnus Carlsen battling Abdusattorov. Yesterday happened. Very creative game. Once again, Magnus proving how genius of a tactician he is. And the game definitely, it's a spectacle, and it's worth to analyzing it together, guys. Let's have a look then. So it's Fischer Random here, so there is no opening theory. You can't memorize lines and then you just reproduce them by heart and play the variation after variation after sub-variation. So you gotta be creative with the first move. And Magnus goes with the g4. I don't know if normally he would play against Abdusattorov the Grob opening. I think that's the name in the classical chess when you push the g to the g4. But anyway, that's what happened yesterday. So d5, developing now the knights. Strange, weird looking like position, guys. Everywhere, all the pieces are very weirdly positioned, right? But nevertheless, the same rules of chess apply. So e4 now, a little bit of a gambit there. It doesn't have a name, this gambit, right? To play the d4 in the Fischer Random in this particular position here. Giving up on that pawn, which, by the way, if it's to be taken, I reckon you could just push this guy and then attack this pawn back. Probably you're going to be capturing afterwards. So knight to b6 he hadn't taken, and developing, pushing that pawn. Amongst others, probably will be taking from the knight any knight c5 ideas if that were to happen. And now the f3 had been played here. Bishop already kind of happy along that diagonal, takes and recaptures back. So there's not a problem, and now Abdusattorov pushes c5, attacking the bishop on d4 now. You got to react to this move, and he chose to play f2. Now further attacking by Abdusattorov in a very aggressive stance nowadays, which is very good, the only way to play chess, by the way. And now Magnus didn't move the knight. He actually goes for trading this knight here. And in principle, if you look at this, guys, you're going to give black two double pawns on the b file. So that's quite that principle of chess we always have to remind ourselves. If you have a chance to give your opponent double pawns, do it. That's exactly what he did. So after he captured back, because he was checked, by the way, with tempo, took back, and now the knight goes very nicely on b4. And actually, the knight can't be challenged by any pawn, if you look at this now. So the knight stays very nicely where they are currently. Going for the middle, e5, d5, sorry guys, and c3 to putting a stopper to any possible coming down of that particular pawn. Bishop developed now, and now Abdusattorov is ready to castle. He played the bishop. Of course, in the Fischer Random, guys, you are allowed to castle. You castle as per normal, no pieces in between the king and the rook. I know it looks incredibly weird, okay, but yes, you can castle here. So Abdusattorov, both black, both white, can castle, provided they get the bishop out, and he just did that, black and white as well. You managed to move this guy and no longer subjecting the c1 to check to control from the bishop, and then you should be able to castle. And now Magnus plays knight to h5, attacking the bishop. And the bishop goes very nicely onto h6. And look at this diagonal. Quite dangerous, quite aggressive there. You really got to be very careful. And now Magnus tries to stopping that bishop. Perhaps he gives himself a little bit of a chance to maybe castle at some point, or at least he wanted to. So stopping the bishop so I can castle my king. And now he castled. Abdusattorov castles at this stage here. and Magnus played the knight back. And if you're telling me, well, can't we just play this guy? Yeah, probably you can. But the plan, I guess, for Magnus would be here. He would like to play potentially maybe some bishop to f5 check. And even if this were to happen, you always have a problem with the fork on g6. So you got to be careful. Amongst others, he chose to play knight to g3. Perhaps maybe you want to play at some point either knight or bishop on f5. g6 just stops you from playing, exactly as we said, either bishop or knight to f5. It's definitely worthy of attention here to say that actually another very good move for black. And actually I was saying that during my live stream yesterday when I was obviously being live with my friends. I was saying that actually d4 was a very good idea. By the way, when I'm streaming, I'm not using any table base or nothing. Everything is raw, no engine gauge, no nothing, no evaluation gauge, no nothing. So yesterday I was discussing with my friends, and we came to the conclusion that actually d4 would have been quite an aggressive idea, to which you might have been able to reply with some bishop f5, king goes, and then castles. So that might be another idea for white in this weird, very unorthodox position. But after g6, obviously bishop f5 is no longer possible. e3 now, and you may wonder why. Why? Exactly on the same idea. We got to put a stop to this one. This is serious. You don't need to worry about checks from the queen because you're always having the bishop to c2, so everything's fine from this point of view. Queen playing now onto d7. What do you think the queen want to do? The queen wants to take the pawn on g4, so you need to defend this pawn here, and you might be having either the pawn or the queen to do something in regards with defending, and Magnus goes for queen to e2, defending the pawn attacked on g4 by the queen. Rook now positions itself very nicely here. Notice please that the rook is on the same line with the white queen. Always you need to keep in mind, and it's not a very healthy idea to keep that queen because, you know, in principle all sorts of things might have happened. You've got to be careful about this potential pressure here along that diagonal with the bishop, and you've got to pay very close attention to various threats that might be happening. Obviously not now because there is also a check here, so you're not going to be achieve a great deal of nothing, but also it's just worthy of attention. You need to think of as many ideas as possible. Now he drops the knight onto c2 because if you wonder why, Magnus wants to readjust the knight and put him on a very good outpost, and this one looks like super ideal. If I may say that, knight to d4 would be so super happy. Again, not challenged by any pawn. Bishop now readjusts itself, goes over to this particular square here, f8, and probably they just wanted to. Initially, they wanted to play. I think it makes a lot of sense to say that bishop to c5 would be very seriously targeting the e3, which is a backward pawn, weak pawn, and white has to pay attention to that particular weakness. And now Magnus comes with a move like b4. And if you're saying, yeah, but I can take en passant, right? You kind of can, yeah, you could take en passant, to which white takes, and also there is this idea, not the end of the world for black, but you need to factor in that actually there could be some checks, and then if the king moves, you're going to be watering down the rooks, looking on the D and E file down the board, leading to the white king. So these are all sorts of details. So b4 here definitely puts a stop to the bishop, and if you want to take en passant, you need to accept you're going to be getting checked on the back rank. So now he developed the bishop. You can't keep the pieces on the back rank, either fish around them or classical chess. Your pieces must be developed, my chess friends. h3 now, and if you wonder why, well, we've got a double attack here, so you can't afford losing that pawn. h3 by Magnus Carlsen, further undermining of the pawn structure here. Nice idea here. If you're going to take here, it's going to be a huge problem after this, and after this you might be even risking dropping the queen, so you got to be very careful. Always good to have more coffee, of course. And now Magnus also we've got to specify here that f5 is also a possible reply from white. Very sharp, very interesting, and very good to actually be pushing this guy on f5. But Magnus tries to play something else. He plays the knight. Okay, he plays the knight. He attacks this guy, which is a very troublesome bishop here. So you would like this guy to having it disappear. So probably that's what Magnus fought, amongst many other things. Abdu took now on g4 and f5. Very tactical and very sweet, very nice. f5 being hit now, f5 being pushed, and the bishop is being attacked by a pawn, mind you guys. Very interesting. And if you say, yeah, but what if I take with the pawn? There is also some very, very weird and very corrosive tactics with h5, aiming at f6, and you've got a lot of danger coupled up with the rook on f. Oh boy. So for this reason, Abdu didn't take, but instead he played bishop f7. And now Magnus reinforced g4, so f5 is heavily, heavily defended here. Queen goes over to c7. I guess it's noticeable. He wants to go for the g3 knight. Queen defends. Bishop now plays again the old pressure. Now the bishop goes back to h6 where they were, and quite some pressure on e3. You can't afford losing or dropping that pawn under no circumstance. That is why rook f to e, defending it twice. There the bishop now plays probably some ideas with a potential pin on h4, a4 by Magnus. Now Magnus wants to go and open up over to the a file amongst other things. Because he pushed a4, takes on f5 now Abdu, and bishop. I think that was a little bit of a relief because now Magnus took on f5 with tempo, moving the bishop from the back rank and attacking the king, which has to move. And now he plays rook e1 to e2, and you may wonder why. Well, amongst many other ideas, we may just be very well interested. Well, we got to see what's happening with this double attack with the e3. Because you will see, guys, that later on in the game, Magnus actually was able to create a battery here, again, with the threat of attacking the king. And if you look at this one, if I am to just fantasize a bit more, even if I am to play the... if the a pawn had been pushed and b pawn took or you took, queen gotta move somewhere. You can even think about making a battery here, dreaming of a checkmate idea. Nevertheless, rook to e2 is an idea that actually did serve him very well in the very near future. So now knight, because knight didn't do nothing here. Look at this knight, quite painful. Knight played on to g6. Bishop takes now. He's just too strong. You may wonder, why did he take? Well, first thing and foremost, we got this thing. So you just can't afford. That's just too much. That is just too much of a fork. So he decided to take. And now he places the other knight on a very good outpost. And now you may say, yeah, it's the bishop pair versus the knights pair. Trust me, is very equal. The game is very equal. So now if I could express that. So not a big problem neither for white nor for black. The game is still sharp. It's very tactically open to craziness. And now Abdu goes with queen to e5. He tries to get some points of access, some crazy points of access into the white territory. But Magnus plays a very positional and very striking and very dangerous idea, as you would guys get to see it very shortly now. a5, aiming to opening the a file. Queen goes over to e4. Obviously, the idea would be a check, and if your block are going to take here, I'm going to take the rook. Quite dangerous. You got to be paying attention to this. So Magnus decided to trade off the queen just to put it on the safer side, taking now on b6. And this pawn on b6, you would see how huge problem would be creating to Abdu. Believe it or not, that pawn would be incredibly problematic to deal with for black. Now Abdu took that pawn, and Magnus now plays the battery that we are discussing a couple of moves ago. By the way, this is a checkmate in a move. What does that mean? It means that it's a forcing move. Black has to check the king because there is absolutely no point to take here. There is absolutely no point to do nothing but just to check the king, because if you don't, checkmate in a move. That's it. Therefore, Abdu had to check. King moves out of check, still providing defense for the e3, just in any case. Rook takes, and rook takes. And now rook's over to exactly to the e file, again landing a bit of pressure on that particular square. Still in the range of being almost equal, but a bit more advantage for white here because of this particular guy that cuts off everything. So black would be careful to prevent any back rank checkmates. Why do you think Magnus played rook h1? That means you won't be able to play any rook left. Well, even if you play, I don't know, by the way, I don't know exactly where you want to go, but even if you could, there is always a check here, and you might need to drop them back, and then they take, and then you take, and then, heck, it's very, very difficult to assess this one. So black has to be careful all the time about the back rack issues. And now he played the most unfortunate move. By the way, if I remember correctly, I think he gave 6 minutes before playing this move, which is definitely not the best move. I was even talking with my friends during the live stream, and we were saying, what about bishop takes f5, which is not a bad idea. You water down the knights, you take them off. I mean, I know you got a bishop pair, but those knights are incredibly dangerous in terms of creating forks, which we're going to see it's going to happen. So now Abdu strangely went for rook to f8. What do you think Magnus plays? He goes with the knight on d6, and Abdu just resigned because the previous rook f8 was a painful blunder here. Really, you can't go on to many places. This thing is going to happen next. Knight to e6, attacking and attacking, and there is always the eternal danger about the back ranks. And you can't now say, oh, I'm going to block with the rook back. You can't, because you've got no bishop looking after your rook to blocking checks from the white rook. So at this stage, black simply resign. It's a huge advantage, +3, +4 for white at this stage. And this is one of those rare exceptions when the knight's pair actually is superior to the bishop pair. Okay, it's just, I mean, you might say, okay, there is a check here. Yeah, but the king is going to be moving away. What do you do? Really, what exactly are you going to do? How exactly are you going to play this one with black? Now mentioning, I mean, again, the rook can't move off the back rank because there is this super dangerous checkmate, and you can't deal with that. There is absolutely nothing here. There is absolutely nothing. You are going to play this. Knight e6 is going to come, and frankly, at this stage now, it's just super game over. I don't know where you're going to go. I don't know what you're going to do. If you play rook to g8, I'm going to take it. You can't even take it back because, again, checkmate due to the b6y pawn. The craziness and the beauty of the fish around them, or freestyle chess, guys. This game happened yesterday. Today is the 14th of February. I think I'm going to go back and live stream the semi-final 2 happening today. Guys, thanks for watching this short video on the game that happened yesterday, fellas. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, My Chess Friends, and follow me on my live streams. We might be discussing more nice chess stuff together. Thank you for watching.